brought to you by WikiVidi Documentaries. Van Helsing film. Van Helsing is a 2004 American dark fantasy action-adventure film written and directed by Stephen Sommers. It stars Hugh Jackman as vigilante monster hunter Van Helsing, and Kate Beckinsale as Anna Valerius. The film is an homage and tribute to the Universal horror monster films from the 1930s and 40s, of which Sommers is a fan. The eponymous character was inspired by the Dutch vampire hunter Abraham Van Helsing, from Irish author Bram Stoker's novel Dracula. Distributed by Universal Pictures. The film includes a number of monsters such as Count Dracula, Frankenstein's monster, and werewolves in a way similar to the multi-monster movies that Universal produced in the 1940s, such as Frankenstein Meets the Wolf Man and House of Dracula. Despite mostly negative reviews, the film grossed over $300 million worldwide. Plot. In 1887 Transylvania, Dr. Victor Frankenstein creates a monster with the aid of Count Dracula, who reveals that he plans to use the creature for his own evil plans. Dracula kills the doctor as a mob of villagers storms the castle. His assistant Igor escapes, but the villagers chase the monster to an old windmill and set it ablaze. The villagers are scared off by Dracula and his brides, who witness the monster, and the doctor's research apparently destroyed by the fire. 1 year later, after killing the elusive Mr. Hyde at the Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris, monster hunter Van Helsing returns to the Vatican in Rome. He learns that his mission, to destroy Dracula and his amnesia are penance for unremembered sins that cause nightmares. He is tasked with helping the last of an ancient Romanian bloodline, Velkin Valerius, and his sister Anna, who must kill Dracula before their ancestors may enter heaven. Karl, a friar, provides Van Helsing with aid and weapons. In Transylvania, Velkin is apparently killed during an attempt to trap and kill a werewolf, and Anna is attacked by Dracula's brides shortly after Van Helsing's arrival. He saves her life and kills Marischka, one of the brides, but as the last of her line, Anna becomes more determined to kill Dracula. In order to protect her, Van Helsing knocks her out to prevent her from leaving. She awakens that night and encounters Velkin, who reveals Dracula has a dark secret, but to her horror, he becomes a werewolf after having been bitten by the original one earlier, and attacks. After she and Van Helsing track him to Frankenstein's castle, they discover that the vampires are attempting to give life to their born-dead children, using Velkin as the source of the power. Van Helsing, dubbed Gabriel by Dracula, realizes they had ties in the past. Van Helsing refuses Dracula's offer to return his memory, and escapes. The experiment fails, and the vampire children die. But Velkin turns on Anna as he is consumed by his curse. Van Helsing and Anna escape together. Under the remains of the old windmill, Van Helsing and Anna encounter Frankenstein's monster. Because he is not evil, Van Helsing cannot allow him to be killed, even though he claims to be key to Dracula's experiment. Velkin witnesses the conversation and escapes to inform Dracula. Meanwhile, Karl discovers a painting that comes to life, depicting a werewolf and a vampire battling. The group travels by carriage to Budapest, luring the remaining brides into a trap and killing Verona. Velkin ambushes the real carriage and bites Van Helsing before being killed. Anna is captured and held as a bargaining chip in exchange for the monster. They hide the monster in a crypt, but he is taken by the Count's undead underlings while Van Helsing and Karl rescue Anna. Returning to the Valerius' castle, Karl discovers an inscription and creates a doorway to the castle. After failing to free the monster from his imprisonment, he lets them know of a cure to lycanthropy that Dracula possesses. Carl determines that the bite of a werewolf is the only way to kill Dracula. He and Anna take Igor to find the cure while Van Helsing goes to free the monster. Igor escapes while the final bride, Alira, assaults Anna as Carl tries delivering the cure to Van Helsing. Igor confronts Carl on a bridge, but the confrontation sends Igor falling to his demise. The monster saves Anna and urges her to help Carl and Van Helsing. She kills Alira and arrives at the castle. The werewolf Van Helsing and Dracula battle. Dracula tries reasoning with the werewolf, but Van Helsing bites Dracula, who dissolves into a skeleton. Anna bursts in, causing her to be attacked and accidentally killed by Van Helsing, but not before she delivers the cure. Van Helsing returns to normal, stricken with grief over what he has done. At a funeral pyre, Van Helsing witnesses the spirits of Anna and her family ascending into the clouds while Frankenstein's monster rows away on a raft out to sea. Van Helsing and Carl ride off into the sunset. Critical reception. Van Helsing received mostly negative reviews by critics. Rotten Tomatoes, a review aggregator, reports that 23% of 213 surveyed critics gave the film a positive review. The average rating was 4.2. The site's consensus reads, "A hollow creature feature that suffers from CGI overload." Metacritic rated it 35/100 based on 38 reviews. Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times gave the film 3 stars out of 4, stating that, at the outset, "We may fear some is simply going for FX overkill, but by the end, he has somehow succeeded in assembling all his monsters and plot threads into a high-voltage climax." Van Helsing is silly, spectacular and fun. Board games. Van Helsing appears in a board game designed by Frederick Moyezone, the creator of numerous successful board games such as Saboteur. The board game was released by Mayfair Games in 2010. Video games. Vivendi Universal Games published a Van Helsing video game for PlayStation 2, Xbox, PC, and Game Boy Advance. The game follows a similar plot to the movie, has gameplay similar to Devil May Cry, and the PS2 and Xbox versions feature the voice talent of many of the actors including Hugh Jackman. Reboot and shared universe. In May 2012, Universal Pictures announced that they are rebooting the film with Alex Kurtzman and Roberto Orci as a 2-year deal to produce a modern reimagining, and Tom Cruise to star as the title character and also produce the film. Rupert Sanders is in talks to direct the film. Orci spoken to IGN that he has hinted that both The Mummy and Van Helsing reboots will have a shared universe. On November 11, 2015, Variety reports that John Spertz and Eric Heisherer will write the reboot, but Cruise left the film. However, in 2016, Cruise signed back on to star in Kurtzman's The Mummy, which was released in theaters on June 9, 2017. Thank you for watching. Brought to you by WikiVidi Documentaries. Please like and subscribe below. Please like and subscribe below.